We want to inspire all of you.
All kinds of acting, theater. It's going to be a great couple of semesters.
Once in a lifetime.
They are your friends. They are my family.
Hey everyone, welcome to OC Live Online. This episode, we are celebrating Women's Month with my friend Connie Sheu, and actually Dr. Connie Sheu. She is a doctor of musical arts and does all kinds of cool stuff with the guitar. So Connie, welcome. It's so nice to have you here. And maybe we could just get started with where you got started with guitar.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. I guess my journey with the guitar began a long time ago when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old. And I started Suzuki guitar. So basically that was a method mostly used for teaching violin to children that a teacher in my area where I grew up, in the Bay Area, I grew up in San Jose, was just starting to test out on the guitar. And I actually started playing cello first when I was 4, and then at the same place where I was taking lessons, that teacher, Frank Longe, was just starting to teach Suzuki guitar. And so I really took to the guitar, and I just loved that I could control the sound with my fingers instead of a bow. Like, it just felt more intimate, more personal to me. And I don't know, I just fell in love with the sound. So I continued with guitar for a long time, all the way up until through high school, and took lessons really seriously, did competitions, that kind of thing.
As a kid, then, those were like child level competitions or something?
Like youth. I mean, I did okay. It wasn't anything amazing, but then I think once I started thinking about college, I wanted to do other things, and guitar at that point was like a serious hobby for me. So I ended up at Columbia in New York, intending to be sort of on a pre-law track. So I was a history major. I always loved the social sciences and even thought about being involved in politics or that kind of thing. And then I guess there was a point when I was like 21 where I just felt like I had to decide on one thing, because I'd done all this stuff my whole life. I'd played cello, I played guitar. I was involved in a lot of extracurriculars when I was a kid. And at the end of college, it just felt like I had kind of like too many things on the table. And I just wanted to focus my attention and my energy behind one thing. So did some soul searching, and then just ended up wanting to pursue a master's of music in guitar performance. So I took time off, took a year off after college, and then applied to master's programs, ended up back in New York at Juilliard, where I did my master's, and then later on did DMA at USC.
And who did you study with at Juilliard?
Sharon Isbin, who has definitely been a trailblazer for women in the guitar world. When she was coming up mostly in the 80s, there were very few women of her caliber of playing on the scene.
Yeah, probably you could count them on one hand.
Yeah.
And
there was Leona Boyd, and there was Sharon, and, at least in America. And really, she's commissioned more concertos than anyone, I swear. Just so much music has been a result of her just going to composers and saying, will you write for the guitar? Will you write for the guitar? And that persistence has really paid off.
And do you think she's one of the primary reasons we have a totally different landscape for guitarists and women today?
I think she's part of it. Yeah, absolutely. I think when people see others like them or, the same gender or I don't know. It just always helps to have role models doing whatever you're doing. So I think that having people like Sharon in the field definitely has had a lot to do with it. It's, I guess, the guitar world, I guess for anyone outside of the guitar world, they may not be familiar with just the gender balance or imbalance rather, that's traditionally been there. And I can tell you when I was a kid, there were maybe like one or two other girls studying guitar with my teacher, but it was always predominantly male. And I was always the only girl at festivals or going to like a local competition. And then once I got to college, it was like just like, I don't know, and grad school, it was like there were a lot of guys. Like you can always spot a guitarist because their hair is kind of grown out and they're always talking about their nails. So it just always felt like I was definitely in the minority. So.
And today, what do you experience?
Today, I think that's slowly changing.
Aren't you telling me about your studio being almost all girls?
Right. Well, not all girls, but I would say maybe 3/4 of my students are girls.
That's great.
I teach now at the Colburn School in downtown LA, where I direct a Suzuki guitar program and have a lot of students also that are kind of out of that age range and are more in the late middle school, high school age. So I love working with youth and just kind of seeing that growth develop from when they're really little to when they are ready to, go to college or take the next steps in life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's been amazing to kind of watch that trend change. That like there are just a lot more girls interested in classical guitar than there used to be.
Yeah, even 10 years ago when we were doing our doctorates, I feel like we had a few in our program.
Yeah.
We had more than when we started, for sure. Right? Like I can think of Eva and Irene and we had like a good chunk of
right, but you can count them on one hand.
But but you could still count them on one hand. We just happened to fill out one whole hand.
Yeah,
maybe it was the nailed hand. I don't know. So
that might be still true today. I don't
know.
Been on college campuses in a while.
What about you've been seeing all the GFA, the most recent GFA competitions. How were women represented there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the youth division, we've consistently had at least one girl in the finals the last few years.
Oh, that's huge.
But
since there's only 3 people in the finals, right?
Well, there's 4. There's 4 places and then 2 divisions, like 14 and under, and then like 15 through 18 is one division. But it's always like, is there going to be a girl? We always, our staff always are kind of like looking to see because it's still unusual. And in the adult competition, absolutely still unusual. Like we've had one woman in the finals the last couple years, but it's been a while since there's been a woman who actually won the first prize, the grand prize of the competition. Yeah.
And so it should be 51% of the time or so.
Right. So that's still not the case. And I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I have my theories. Like I think in the United States, a lot of people come to classical guitar after pursuing other styles.
Electric guitar or something.
Kind of like your case,
which is
right,
even
Scott?
More, totally. Yeah, I started playing punk rock and stuff. And, definitely. I mean, in that arena, it's even less representation. Right. Yeah, so that's a good theory, right? The idea that since so many classical guitar players start with rock, and rock is even more rarefied in terms of representation of women.
Right. And I've seen that change, like in Suzuki teaching, because you start the student out fairly young. I mean, like age 5 or so. Some people even younger, age 4. And they're going straight classical all the way through. Like the Suzuki books are pretty traditional in the sense that there's a lot of classical period reps. So there's a lot of Sohr, there's a lot of Giuliani, there's Paganini transcriptions, there's like a lot of things from that period. And so they're learning like a pretty traditional technique, starting with rest stroke, moving into free stroke, and so on.
Yeah.
So maybe the growth of Suzuki studios and Suzuki teaching, along with other methods, have also contributed to that change. Yeah,
that would totally make sense. And you were was yours one of the first Suzuki guitar courses when you took it?
Yeah, my teacher at the time was the person trying to get Suzuki guitar books published. They didn't exist before that.
And which is why you're in the book.
I am, yeah. That was like my 5 minutes of fame that
There
like
we go.
won't stop following me.
And it won't stop following you here because we're definitely
Yeah.
digging up that picture somewhere. So what gave you the idea for, if not just this topic, what gave you the idea for doing a all composers album, all women composers album?
Right. Well, when we were doing DMA, I guess I just started looking around, and the gender trend that we've been talking about has followed me my whole life. And it's like when something's like that, you just kind of get used to it. You're like, well, that's just how things are.
Right.
And I was a student at the time, so I didn't feel like it was like my mission in life to change that, or but repertoire-wise, I don't know what it was. I just had a moment where I thought to myself, I think every piece I've ever played was written by a man, and a white man, no less. And I'm not a white man, and that sort of feels odd sometimes, and I don't always think about it. But when I sit down to think about it, I feel like that shouldn't be the case, because I have lots of friends and colleagues that are not white men, and I know lots of, composers, and not all of them are men. So I just started to do research on female composers, and it was like kind of a novel idea at the time. And in 2010 or 11, right? I don't feel like it's that earth-shattering anymore, because I want it to be normal. I want it to be normal that half the program you play is written by women, because why not? And that's kind of just been my mission ever since doing that project for DMA, which, was kind of like part of completing the degree and doing that lecture recital that we were all required to do. But ever since that, it's just been like, I've just thought to myself, well, should I get off this soapbox? Should I change my project angle or not? And the answer, like, when I really think about it, is that, like, I can't. I shouldn't.
No.
Because it's doing a disservice to any piece written by a woman ever that has not been played because of circumstances. And history hasn't treated all composers as equal. No. There was a long period of time in Western Europe and in the United States where being a musician professionally and a composer was not an acceptable craft or career path for a woman. And slowly that has changed, but I think we're still fighting off some of that kind of culture that's been steeped in classical music.
Absolutely. I mean, we had that it was only 100 years ago that if a woman composer wanted to publish, she had to publish under a man's name most of the time.
Exactly.
Right? Like
Exactly.
Fanny Mendelssohn or...
Right.
Yeah.
Her brother's name, or her husband's name, or whoever's. Yeah. So, I mean, the more digging that I did for works by women composers, the more I found. And then people started sending me pieces like, hey, have you heard this? Like, everybody knew of maybe one that hadn't been played, or they would send it to me. Because that was like my shtick. And I guess my point is now it's not a shtick. It's something that I want all guitarists to be doing, whether they're men or women. Like, if we want to see change, then we sort of all have to be in it together. And it's very powerful for, say, a man to be playing. Like, what if the greatest living male guitarist, whoever that may be, played a program of all female composers? Like, should that be weird? I don't think it should be weird, because my whole life I've played all concerts of, So anyway, it's just like the tiniest thing that I can do as a player to,
help change
I
the
see it as
landscape
activism in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what the arts are for, right?
Right.
Making a statement, communicating ideas. Who are a few of the composers that are represented on your album?
That album, I did some Emilia Giuliani. I did some pieces by Dale Kavanagh, Ida Presti, and Annette Kreuzbrink.
Okay.
And since then, I've done also a shorter album, an EP of all music by Clarice Assad, who
cool. She's so amazing.
She's just an amazing composer. She's not that much older than I am, and I've never actually met her in person, but we have gotten along fabulously just on the phone or via email and stuff.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have a little bit of music from Emilia Giuliani from you. Let's check that out now, and then we can talk about her a little bit afterwards.
Okay, great.
So I love that piece. It's beautiful. And that arpeggio that you play through the whole thing just kills me. I love how it sounds, and I hate playing it. Because it takes me so long to get it warmed up. It's horrible. So how do you practice? Well, first tell us about Emilia Giuliani, and then tell me how you practice these unbelievable, never-ending endurance pieces. How do you prepare for those?
Right. Well, Emilia Giuliani was the daughter of Mauro Giuliani, and I'm not sure if every music student will know who Mauro Giuliani was.
Every guitarist does.
Yeah, he's more well known in guitar circles because he was a guitarist and wrote primarily for the guitar. He wrote so many pieces. But his daughter was named Emilia, and he taught her from a pretty young age, I think. And she got really good. And, she was regarded in their society as very much a virtuosa. And they played duets together. They even traveled together. They went on the road and did concerts together, like this very nice father-daughter sort of concert that they put together. And she wrote quite a few pieces. She wrote this set of 6 preludes, the first one of which you just saw. And they are hard. I mean, they are really demanding from a technical perspective. Now, you have to remember that guitars back then were a little smaller. So that makes getting around the darn thing a bit easier. But there's still, like, if you look at the 6th one in that set, it is just jumping all over the place. It's really challenging. So the one that I just played is all based on arpeggios. And I don't know. I'm a believer in slow practice. I think the key to life is, for any musician, is just breaking things down. And so the arpeggios, I'll practice first the left hand. I'll do block chords and just kind of, go through the changes so that my left hand isn't an issue anymore. And then I'll do just a really slow arpeggio, just like trying to practice planting my fingers back on the string after they leave, and then just like increasing the tempo very gradually. So that's how I would approach that one.
So you put them right back on the string after you play it as the next one's going? So there's like a preparation that happens right after the finger fires?
Yeah, there is a preparation that happens, but you kind of have to time it so that the notes are still ringing as long as you want them to ring. Otherwise, you'll just kind of cut off the sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's kind of my approach. And yeah, these pieces are not easy. But actually when I worked this prelude back up last summer to record it for the Guitar Foundation of America convention, because there was a lecture going on about by Candace Mowbray about women composers. And she had me put this video in there. It was actually my left hand that was kind of achy because there's a lot of these like bar chords that you hold for a long time. And then the right hand remembered what to do. It just was like going.
Yeah. So how did you do? So that was the blocking chords. That was the solution to that.
Yeah.
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 That way you don't have to hold them for so long.
Right. And I was thankful that it was just a 2-minute piece.
Yeah. But still, by the end of it,
Yeah.
you're like, oh.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I love the recording. I can't believe that's just on your phone, the audio from that. It sounds
Yeah,
so good.
I'm not like the most tech savvy person.
Yeah.
My husband gave me this microphone, like, hey, you're on Zoom for like 5 hours a day. You might as well try to make it better. But I was like, okay.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, can you tell us a little bit about the Guitar Foundation of America, GFA, and your position there as general manager?
Yeah. Well, the GFA has been in existence since 1973. It was started kind of as an organization that ran in parallel to ASTA, the American String Teachers Association, but it quickly developed into its own sort of animal. And now we have all kinds of programming that supports classical guitar in the U.S. and internationally. So we run an annual convention, which is our biggest event of the year. We run 3 competitions during that convention for adults, youth, and ensembles. We also run a youth camp for students like 11 through 18 that runs alongside the convention. And we do these events called regional symposia in a normal year and a non-pandemic year. They move to different locations around the country. And they're kind of like mini one-day GFA mini festivals, I guess you could say, or mini conventions. And then we also publish. We have a quarterly journal called Soundboard. We have a annual journal that's peer-reviewed called Soundboard Scholar. And in the past, we've done magazines for kids. We've tried to reach all different demographics within the guitar world, but I would say our membership is made up of anyone from researchers to guitar instructors to professors to performers, students, So, yeah, we really try to advocate hard for the guitar in education, trying to also raise the level of performance, through putting on events and concerts. And
that competition is just amazingly prestigious.
Right. Our competition is probably known because the winner gets a 50-city tour. And
it's amazing, right?
That's,
like once you win and do that tour, you're basically on the map for guitarists,
right?
Classical guitarists everywhere.
Right. You also do a Naxos recording, and you can get a Mel Bay publication. There's a whole prize package that comes with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you were talking about a new thing that you had kind of spearheaded. That was an outreach type program?
Well, I guess we thought this year, 2020 was just kind of a crazy year in so many ways, but I guess what surfaced for us was wanting to put more time and energy into programs that were focused around inclusion and diversity. And the guitar world, we've talked about diversity from a gender imbalance perspective, but it's also fairly, racially imbalanced. And so we started this mentorship program for students of color that enables them to take lessons with different guitarists and also have a piece commissioned for them by a composer of color. So the GFA has commissioned 14 new pieces, one for every student in our mentorship program, and the students are going to record them, and eventually these pieces will be published for the public to access.
That's excellent.
So it's an incredible project. I've just felt so privileged to be a part of it and to see like this group of young people. We have these monthly workshops too on career development topics, and it's been great to get to know them and see how they're growing and just support them as they journey through, being a classical guitarist of color in a predominantly white, subculture in classical music.
It's really cool. And what about projects for you? Aren't you working on something with a flautist?
Yeah. Well, I play in a duo with my friend Elise Henry. She plays in the LA Phil, so right now they are not really doing live concerts, obviously. So we've been trying to get some rep together. I just recorded this half-hour concert for the Brownsville Society of the Arts, and that'll be streamed, I believe, on February 28th. So about a week from today, and I'll send you a link when it's up and you can pop it.
Please
in.
do.
Yeah. So it was great to just have a project to do anything, because I had a couple concerts that got canceled, and it's just a bummer when you're a working musician and there's just no avenue for you to play.
Totally.
And people have been recording, everybody's been recording and posting videos, and I have too. It's just that it's not the same as having the energy of actual human beings around you. Of course, we've all been lacking that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so tough to perform.
Yeah.
Without that feedback.
Right. You really lose kind of a sense of what you're doing. And
yeah. Well, the whole point is to feel this sense of community, and you have this like amazing communication from the stage to the audience. And then not feeling that is like this.
Right. Without sharing it, it's like you feel like you have no reason to actually work on the music.
Yeah, it's been terrible.
So it's been tough for so many musicians. Yeah. And I have been really busy with teaching just online, as many music teachers have converted their lessons to Zoom. But even that is really hard to stare at a screen for hours on end, especially when you can't just reach out and, move the student's finger to a different place or help them with positioning. You have to just describe everything. And it's like...
it turns a 3-second movement to put your finger here to a 5-minute...
The fret of the third string of this...
And you're just rattling off third string, third finger, 7th fret. And they're like, what? And then you start again.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's exhausting in a completely different way.
Yes.
I think it's like mentally very draining.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
A message to all those girl guitarists out there, maybe?
I'd say just like keep paving your own path, because it's such classical guitar is such a specialized field, I guess. It's almost a niche kind of field in the greater scheme of in the world of classical music and in the larger world of just music in general. Well,
Connie, it's been so nice to talk to you.
And you too. Thanks so much for having me on.
The upcoming Brownsville thing is going to be awesome. I can't wait to check it out.
Thanks.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, really fun. Hey, everyone. So I'm coming to you from my bedroom studio a couple weeks after my chat with Connie. We wanted to share with you just one more live performance, or YouTube live performance, of another one of the women composers' pieces from her A Woman's Voice album. So this is from Dale Kavanagh. She's a wonderful composer, and this is another one of the pieces from Connie's album, A Woman's Voice. Enjoy.